Hello and welcome, race fans, to the very first episode of Racing Equals Life, a brand new podcast about racing, sim racing, gaming culture, and life. I'm your host, Torrin King. I'm a lifelong race fan, car enthusiast, gamer, and I've been hooked on sim racing for the last couple of years. And sim racing has really opened up a world that I had not anticipated. And I've met so many amazing people, shared so many awesome experiences online, and have got to know some people and hear their stories, and I've just really been wanting to capture this and share it to a larger audience. So this podcast is an attempt at sharing this stuff. So without further ado, here's my very first attempt at this. It's a conversation with two of my really good friends, Julien Schein and Kevin Carlise. Enjoy.
I gotta pretend to be as fast as you, yikes. Oh look, I'm faster than Julien, I'm catching him.
I'm definitely not fast, and I haven't spent much time at Spa. And I'm from the United States of America, not Belgium, unlike some of you in this fucking server.
Excuses.
So what's up, guys?
What is up?
So let's just talk. I have questions, but they're just kind of like a guide to keep some conversation going. But let's just start at square one. Like, what's your earliest memory of racing, race cars, anything? Like, just give it to me.
Virtual race cars or?
No, real life. Give me anything. It could be both.
So I'd say that first simulation I drove was Live for Speed. It was probably around 2004, 2005. And at that time, the software was a sim racing game, but I was using keyboard. So that, I guess that wasn't much of a sim racing experience, but still it was pretty fun.
When did you get a wheel and kind of dive into it a little deeper?
2006. Still on Live for Speed, I bought the license, and I bought a Logitech Momo.
Nice. How about you, Kevo? Sim racing, give it to me.
For sim racing, it was January of last year. It was the first time I ever actually used a wheel and pedal, like really used one. Like I got one for Christmas one time, and I got my parents to take it back because I didn't like it. I was playing like Test Drive 5 on PlayStation.
Do you remember what it was?
The wheel? No, I don't remember. I had no clue. It was probably, I have no clue. I can't even begin to remember what it was. But yeah, it was yeah, it was Test Drive 5. I remember that. And I remember just driving Camaro 30th Anniversary Edition on the game and some, made up track that had in Test Drive. And I was just pretending I was driving down the road. Like, I didn't even win the race. I was dead last. I was just, had my hand at 12 o'clock. I was just cruising like it was my car. Yeah, and that's the first time I ever actually used a wheel and pedal, but it was only for like half a day. And then I borrowed a G27 from my friend and used it for a whole year, and I got this Fanatec, whatever stuff this past February. But I've only actually been sim racing since last January, and I only did it like once or twice a week. And then once I got into rallycross is when I really started doing it. So June of 2018 is whenever I really started sim racing. Really started. That's when I met up with all you guys.
Yeah. So I'll give you mine. I'm going to show a little bit of my age. So I think I unofficially started sim racing in the 90s when, so you guys know my dad's big into iracing.
Yeah.
In the 90s. So he drove go-karts and bought both him and I steering wheels and computers, and we started playing. So first we didn't have a sim. We were playing some other like weird arcadey racing game. What what the hell is that called? It was like a post-apocalyptic racing game. It was like one of the first online racing games too. But we ended up getting into. Have you guys ever heard of a game called Dirt Track Racing?
Yep. I used to have it made by Dirtbag.
Yep, Dirtbag, Australian developer.
Yeah.
So we got into that. Dude, it had to be like late 90s maybe. And we had these like Logitech. I don't even know what they were. But his was the force feedback version, and it had it was a red rim, and mine wasn't force feedback and had a yellow rim, and we had them side by side. Our CRT monitors, driving some dirt tracks. I was painting liveries for us. Like, we got really big into it, but you know, I kind of like got older and got out of it, and he stuck with it and got into iRacing. But I would say since then, like in the last 5 years, I really started to pick up, because my dad gave me an old Driving Force GT he had, like maybe 5 years ago, and I started playing the F1 games, not competitively, and then the dirt, like 3s and 4s and stuff that came out, and then he finally convinced me to get iRacing last year when Rallycross came out. We had just gone to the Lucas Oil Rallycross race, the GRC race, and that track was on there, and he was like, dude, drive this. And then I went home and installed, and rest is history. But yeah, so pretty young career for me as far as like seriously taking sim racing.
Prior to sim racing, I'd played every racing game I could think of, because I've always had Xbox and PlayStation, so all the Forzas and Gran Turismos and Dirt and all this. But Dirt is probably my favorite game, racing arcade game, and I played all of those. It was so much fun. I remember there was like a tier system with the races on Dirt 1, and I'd make sure I won like every single one of them. It was really cool.
So what about real life? Julien, I know you got something.
Oh yeah.
I know you got some stories.
In real life, first time I drove go-karts, it was at Spa, and it was it was during the 24-hour race, bike race, that is, on the big track, and my brother was there, and I was just a kid. I was maybe 10 or something, and he said, let's go to the go-kart track, and I'll rent a kart for you. So that was my very first experience, and I will never forget it, because I remember what he said to me. He said that at first I wasn't very confident, but as soon as I got the hang of it, I was pretty decent, I guess. And then, so yeah, that was my first experience. But then, as I got older, with all the sim racing I did, I always wanted to prove myself that I could be as fast in real life than sim racing. So in 2012, I had the opportunity to start competing in the national championship in karting. And my first race was a disaster, because I had no idea what I was doing. Like, my tire pressure was way too high, and I believe the tires were really dried. Like, they were really old, and no grip was left in there. So it was a disaster. I spun every heat race. But then I won my second race, third race, fourth race, and at the end of the season, I've won the championship.
Nice. Get the right tires on, you can fly.
Yeah, that was day and night difference. So that's it about karting. Well, I drove another season. I won the championship, and then I was about to drive a season in shifter karts, but then didn't work out. So I didn't compete for a few years, and now this year I'm doing my first ever season with cars, with a Honda Civic.
That's gotta be awesome. There's a lot of
awesome.
Hondas around.
It is a dream come true, not only to race but to drive on those tracks I always been a fan of, such as Spa and Zolder. We went to Magny-Cours in France, which is an F1 track, an ex-F1 track. And Assen, what a memory in Assen. It was my first race since the Honda is always the braking engine, so this is the first time we did the entire race without a problem. And so for my first stint in the car, it started raining after a few laps, so I was out on the track by myself with legs on a wet surface.
Ooh.
that was an experience.
I bet it was.
But in this scenario, I believe that my karting experience gave me an advantage, and I've managed my entire stint on track with the slicks on wet surface. And so when I got in the car, we were 2 laps down, dead last. And when I pitted after my stint, we were 3 laps advantage, first place.
Wow.
And I had, the funny thing is, I had no idea, because it's an endurance race, so the positions get mixed up, and you don't actually know if you are going fast or not, because you don't have cars of your class around to as a reference. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
So I had no idea if I was going fast or not. So I was just focusing on not making any mistakes or spin or whatever. So that was a great surprise when I got out of the car and people came to me to congratulate me and show me the live timing, the classification of the race. Yeah, I was really surprised, but also it was a big relief, because, well, you know, I wanted to prove myself, and that was it.
Yeah, definitely.
I got a little bit emotional, and my dad was there, and he got emotional as well. So that was a big moment for me.
That sounds awesome. Especially to have your dad there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that your karting experience kind of really kicked in, driving a real car. And I know you and I have talked offline how much sim racing has impacted you too, and how it translates. Let's just talk about that. Like, we're all sim racers. You know, you're a real life driver now. Like, this is like such a unique thing where the game or the simulation is such a like direct like transfer into real life. Like, we see it all over the place with you know, drivers coming from sim to real life and doing well. Like
William Byron, NASCAR.
Yep, he's huge. There's just lots of guys, and there's even people that we know on the sim that have gotten opportunities to drive in real life because of the sim. I mean, Julien, you're one of those people, right? Because didn't you win something on a Seto and test drive a BMW at Zolder maybe a couple weeks ago?
Did, yes.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, it was pretty cool.
So I know you just kind of went on a story that, you know, it kind of involved karting, but in between all of this karting and then getting into a real car, you've been sim racing. Like what kind of impact do you think that has? Is that like really significant?
So first of all, I've mentioned karting because on the sim I drove a bunch of sims, but most of them we don't have wet surface.
Yep.
We don't have the rain, so that's why the karting experience really helped me in that situation. You know on a wet surface, you find the grip on the outsides of the turns. You got to change your lines to find the grip. So that's why I mentioned karting. But on a dry surface, and actually in any conditions in general, I'm 100% sure that sim racing gave me a lot. I've learned it all on the sim racing games. There's no doubts about it. Like when I first got my driving license in real life, it was snowing pretty bad where I live, and so I went to play on the snow with my car, a front wheel drive, and I was messing around, I was sliding everywhere, and it was super fun. My father came with me when it was snowing, and at first he didn't know what to expect, so he was hanging on the door handle and everywhere he could. But after a while, he understood that I sort of knew what I was doing, and I wasn't taking too much risks. So he started smiling and enjoying it, and
he chilled out.
yeah, exactly. And he also said to me, that's unbelievable that you've learned it all on a video game, quote unquote. He calls it a video game, obviously, and now you do that in real life, and it's like you've done this your entire life. And it was the first time. So there's absolutely no doubt that sim racing can teach you how to drive and how to have full control of your vehicle. And yeah, it's the best tool ever for a racer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was kind of thinking like it's a place where there are no consequences for making mistakes, right? So you can learn.
And it's cheap.
Yeah, very cheap.
Super low point of entry. You can learn by trial and error. You can get competitive. Like we know iRacing is kind of the top dog with competitiveness, but like you can get all these skills. Sure, it's maybe not exact, but it's so close that you can go from sim racer to real life racer.
It definitely puts you on a faster track and maybe a step ahead of anybody that's actually just starting out. Let's say dirt track racing. Like I think his name is Zach Leonardi. I think is the guy that won the the World of Outlaw with the late model. He drives in real life, and he drives on the sim. And then he went and raced like Clint Boyer's car at Charlotte. Looks like he'd done it like a million times. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Alex Bergeron. Like they go drive in a sprint car, and it's not exact, but it's pretty damn close to where they feel a familiar, thing to it. I watched a thing on Michael Conti. He drives in Peak Series. He said the same thing. He said at first it was kind of surprising. You have the heat and all the vibration and all that, but as soon as he got on the track, he's like, okay, I've seen this before. And it really becomes that way.
Absolutely. And before my races, I prepare on the sim.
Really?
Before my races with the Honda, I do a session on the sim, like the previous day or a few days before I leave for the track. And sometimes it's not exactly the same because I'm doing this on Assetto Corsa since we don't have a Honda Civic on iRacing.
Yeah.
So I've tried to find a Honda Civic good physics on Assetto Corsa, and I believe I found it. It's not bad at all. It's actually pretty good, and but the track isn't 100% the same. Like there's a few details of that are different from real life to the sim, or the opposite from the sim to real life. But it's still a very good tool. Like for example, Assen. I've never drove on Assen. Barely on the sim. I just did a preparation before my race, but as soon as I got on the track, I knew exactly where I was going. So it saved me so much time on the actual track in real life. I didn't have to do many laps to learn where I was going, because I knew exactly where I was going. I knew more or less where I had to brake, and which gear to use in which corner, and stuff like this. So conclusion is even I started racing in real life, I believe I will never quit sim racing, because it's such a great tool and practicing tool, and it's amazing. It keeps you in shape, sort of.
Yeah, especially mentally, like you said, knowing which corners where, which gear you should in, all of that stuff, it really helps.
Yeah.
Like you see Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, these are top level drivers in the world, and they still, use iRacing. And then you got on the NASCAR side, I see Clint Boyer, Tony Stewart, these guys, they still drive iRacing, just, rather having fun or learning something.
Yeah, about Lando and Max Verstappen, I believe it's something different for them, because since they are in a F1 team, they have
they have their own.
At the F1 factory, whatever they drive, I think Lando drives a McLaren.
Yeah,
but they have a professional sim racing cockpit rig. However you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for them it's probably just a no pressure thing.
Yeah, iRacing is probably more of a recreation thing.
Yeah.
You still see a lot of them on there. Like Max is on here all the time.
Yeah, Max is on a lot.
Yeah.
I see people like Sage Karam's always on here. So many drivers are on here, whether it be the top tier F1 driver or down to, we're all familiar with Rallycross. It's where we all met.
I believe recently I've seen the real Kevin Carlise.
I think this is like a really interesting month past, because we had a sim racing broadcast on television, on actual television. Like how
that's huge on NBC.
How amazing is that?
That's huge.
Like
and a lot of people will write it off. They say it's a video game. It's because they're not really understanding the impact it's having. But then you look at drivers like we mentioned earlier, William Byron, all these people, they come from here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how much different is the world of motorsports going to be in the next 10, 20 years? Because you have the lowest point of entry. You have, a simulation that is so damn good that, you can pull talent from. And, I think we're going to see some interesting things. I have a hunch, and I want to know if you guys think similarly, that esports and then sim racing specifically is going to become major, like so popular, and maybe even start to rival the real thing in our situation. Like you're seeing it pop up on TV. I
definitely hope so. Especially with esports being so big as it is, like esports in the past 5 years has blown up so much with, you got Counter-Strike, now you have Fortnite. Some 16-year-old kid won $3 million last week playing Fortnite. Like,
It's
these esports orgs are getting their eye on what's going to be next, and hopefully racing will take off to be. It will never be as big as Fortnite, I don't think.
Nope.
But I think it will be in a category of its own, doing its own thing.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I mean, the money's coming in, and that's what's going to make it work, right? That's what's going to make it grow. We have sponsors, like you guys both know, like even people like us can make money sim racing. Like, you know, there's streaming, there's marketing yourself. You can become an influencer. You can get sponsors. Like, it's going to be a way of living for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be really, really cool. There's some teams out there that if you have pro license, you get a month's salary. You get perks. You get sponsorships. You get lots of tools to help you succeed even more.
I think it's really interesting. Oh, sorry. Go for it.
I was saying, luckily, I've been fortunate enough to get on one of those teams.
Yeah.
Team Apex Racing.
Apex
Racing team from UK.
So Apex is huge. I know they're, one of the top teams in sim racing, and I think it's really interesting to kind of see this. You look at things like Peak, where you have legit motorsports organizations coming in and sponsoring cars, and I know you got that art deal, Kevo, and I was going to mention how really amazing it is for and Julien, that maybe this is something we can discuss, but I'm out of gas. But big Williams is stepping in, and then in NASCAR you have JR and the Wood Brothers and these huge racing organizations with history, and that's getting brought into sim, and just how amazing that is.
Yeah, they could become development programs, for real life things. That definitely could. You start at the E League, and they might throw you in a car and be like, hey, you look impressive straight from a sim to the real thing. There's your opportunity to be a real life race car driver.
Yep. I was so I met up with some of our mutual friends back in June, and I remember it was kind of like a big thing in our Discord server. A bunch of us were meeting up, and one guy that was a possibility was Josh Fox, who signed with Williams this past year, and we're all posting pictures of hanging out together at Mid-Ohio, and he posted a picture from the Canadian Grand Prix, hanging out with
Williams's box.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, that is sick.
Anyway,
definitely cool.
So yeah, I think maybe we should move on. I've got kind of a couple different tangents I wanted to go on. I think it's interesting. Go.
Sorry. Yeah, I want to talk about the fact that real life teams are getting involved in sim racing. I think it's awesome to get their attention, and it's gonna grow the esports scene and everything. But I've had a different experience with that. Not gonna mention the team, but last year I've put so much effort in a team I was part of, and basically we were representing the esport part of a real life team. And at first everything was going well, it was very good, but the involvement of the team boss in the sim racing division after a while got a little bit out of hand, because that person was the team boss, so he wanted things to go his way when he didn't know much about sim racing. And to me, the beauty of sim racing is also that it's a hobby, and you gotta have fun to spend so many hours behind a screen driving virtual race cars. If you don't have fun, then it's not worth it.
Yeah, I can second that, because this pro qualifier season for the IRX World Championship coming up, I've spent so much time prepping, the past, since I started. That was my goal, is to qualify for that. But once I'm actually doing it, I can only race 3 days a week, maybe one race a day, and it's extremely stressful, where it literally becomes a job. I know it's, I do have some pressure because I have a team to represent, and I have to, these standards I have to drive to, and if you don't meet those, you instantly feel, only as good as your last race. Every race car driver does that, no matter if it's sim or not. And whenever you start making it out to be a job, it really gets mentally taxing, to where some days I don't even want to cut on my PC. Like, it just, I don't want to do it. But you have to stay at that level.
Exactly. To do things very seriously, it becomes like it's a job, and it's fine. It's totally fine. I mean, it's the way to do it if you want to succeed and go big in this scene. But there has to be still a place for fun, because if there's no fun, then I don't see the point.
Yeah.
So I have a very recent experience with that relates to the IRX Pro qualifier. Like, Kevin and I spent this last year, like, both working really hard at it, him more than me, just due to, I have a family and things like that. I'm not dedicating as much time, but I still wanted to take it seriously. But my problem was, like, I couldn't put enough time into practicing and getting better and all that fun stuff to keep up. So if I dedicated myself and turned it into a job, I was going to be fine, but I was on the cusp. So I first few weeks I was trying it, and it's not like I can't do it, but the amount of dedication just, wasn't there. And we were trying, and I have my own group of guys that are going for it, and I was getting frustrated because I was basically getting into wrecks and arguments and all kinds of drama with I thought my own team. I thought we were in it together, and all of a sudden I'm like,
you realize it's actually every man for himself.
It's every man for himself, and after week one, when some drama went down, I just was like, hey man, like, I think you should have been a little bit more respectful to me as a teammate, as someone that's been working towards this, and you just dumped me and left me for dead, and I'll still be on your team and we can drive the same colors, but dude, I'm out for you. Like, and I realized in that moment I wasn't having fun. Yeah, I was stressed out, but I was on the cusp of, like, taking it seriously, and I just knew that I either had to be miserable and deal with it to get what I wanted, or change my mindset and go, this isn't why I do this. And that's what I did. I just said, you know what? Sure, I'm on the cusp. I could probably qualify. It's going to be grueling. I'm going to make some enemies out of friends, and is that worth it? So I ultimately made the decision to just drop it. Like, it's
Yeah, it's tough, but this is competition. We're not talking about friendly competition at the point. We are talking about
actual competition.
True competition. So that's how it is. You can't really avoid that.
Exactly.
Well, actually, you can if you do something a little bit more special than rallycross, like endurance races. It's competition, but you are in a team, so it's not every man for himself. Yeah. It's all together, so it's different. But
exactly. So, Julien, I think you turned both Kevin and I onto endurance racing last year, and I will say,
did I?
Yes, you did. Nordschleife for life.
Yeah.
the way you talked about just, endurance racing, spending 12, 24 hours with a group of people with a common goal and the camaraderie and just so, we ran the 24 hours of Daytona, and that was the best time I've ever had sim racing and maybe even gaming.
Glad to hear.
So you inspired that, and the way you talked about it was just so like it's romanticized, it's special.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
To me, endurance racing is really special. The atmosphere, the team side of things, and it's really, really special.
Yeah,
it's everyone's sharing a long haul mission together, not worrying about the other driver. You hope he does well because it's also your car.
Yeah, but like it's so interesting, like the dynamics, because you have some people that are quicker than others, and you kind of like use that as strategy to make it to the end, and just it's less like in the moment racing and more just like long haul racing that it's kind of relaxing, but it's so exciting at the same moment. I don't know. I loved it. I've only run a few of them so far, but I agree with that. That is like something different. It's competitive, but you're in it with a group of guys and you're like being supportive and collaborating, and that's definitely like a really positive like upside to competition.
Yeah, and while being teammates with someone.
It's team play at its finest.
So we can stay around where we are here, but I think that kind of like segues into something that I wanted to talk about, which was the so I'm like a super introverted guy, right? And I don't have a whole lot of friends. Not that I want a whole lot of friends, but it's a little lonely. And since sim racing for almost 2 years now.
What? Technical difficulty.
I've made friends, and that's just amazing to like make. I've never met you guys. I might not ever meet you guys, especially Julien, right? But I feel like I've like made a connection. Okay.
Never say never.
Never say never. But in all likelihood,
I'm gonna ring at your door tomorrow, and you'll be like, "What?"
I will probably call the cops because that would be weird. Which is another side to this I want to talk about. But like, how do you guys feel about that? Like, to me, it's just like my best friends are on the internet and I've never met them before. Like, I spend more time with you guys than I've spent with my real friends in real life, and I feel like I know you better and we connect more, and I think that's just really special.
That's something that is missing from today's society. Is people don't realize that staying on your phone all the time, staying on Xbox Live or racing, whatever, does not mean you're shutting yourself off from the world. It actually means the opposite.
You're connecting.
Like we would never meet Julien, like you said, in an actual situation without being on the internet, and we can talk to him literally every day now.
I must agree, but I must say that it's different interaction.
Yes.
Between persons, it's totally different meeting someone in person and then meeting someone on the internet. On the internet, there's less judgment. There's much less space for insecurity, and
you can be yourself more.
Yeah, and also in our case, we met around a topic, which is sim racing, and since we all love this activity, then it connects us. So there's that. When since I'm doing sim racing since such a long time, there's people I've met online, then I've met them in real life, and it didn't went so good. We were really, I won't say close friends, but we were really on the same page on the internet when sim racing, but when we met, it was much different. It was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So I was coming off of an experience where I met a large group of sim racers. I feel that, like, I met one of our mutual friends, Jeff. He came, like, never met the guy before in my life. He could have been an axe murderer. I was like, hey, you're swinging through to pick me up. Like, why don't you just, you're driving 10 hours, just come a day early and crash. And, I've got a wife and a 2-year-old, and that was, like, really weird. And my wife was really freaked out. But, like, I just, I thought I could, get a good grasp of who he was, like, from what I know about him on the internet and having conversations. And I trusted him enough to not have any bad intentions. And, it was really awkward, but, like, the awkwardness went away. I don't know, I had a great time. I met some of our rallycross friends, and they're the same people that, I thought I knew online. But I could see how, that's not the case. Like, just because you're bros on the internet doesn't mean it's going to work in
it's different to put a face to a voice. Because I know I've done similar things like that through Halo 3 back in 2010. I had guys from different states meet up at my house, and all weekend we land and played Halo. And like I said, I've only known these people through Xbox Live. And then once you see them, it's like, wow, you're a real person. And like you said, it was awkward at first, but once you realize that they're actually there, the awkward goes away, and you just hear their voice, and it's a very familiar feeling.
It's you, like, know them so well, but you've never met them, so you don't know them.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, it is really weird.
I've had another experience like that where I was part of a team on Live for Speed, and there was that Dutch guy, Robin name. He wasn't really much active on the game. I would see him maybe once a month, and it was very brief, but it was a cool dude. There was no doubt about it, but I didn't have much affinities with him. But I started competing karting at the time I was in that team, and I would share my experiences on the forum, on the team forum, that is. And all of a sudden he got really interested, and we started to talk about karting. And then the next thing is that he bought the karting, and he started doing a few track days at his place. And then he said, well, why wouldn't I come with my karting during the summer at your place, and then we can go on tracks together? And I said, yeah, sure, let's do that. And so we came to my place, and we had a blast for a week. We went on every Belgian tracks with our kartings, and it was a blast. And meeting him in person was a little bit awkward at first, but as I mentioned, I didn't have much affinities with him on the game. But in real life, it turned out it was such a cool dude, and we had many affinities actually, and it straight up became my best friend. And for many years, every summer we would do the same. He would come for a week to my place, and we would go on karting tracks and do a fire camp at the lake and just hang out together. And it was probably the one of the best times of my life. It was so cool.
That sounds awesome.
So, not to get too deep in the weeds here, but we all have a mutual experience of something really horrible happening with online personalities. And the only reason why I want to bring it up is because it's kind of a thing that, at least in Julie and I's case, like, made us friends. But there's definitely like a dark side of meeting people on the internet and the things that they go through that just, it's strange. So I'm of course talking about who should not be named, Tom Reckers. But just like how off the deep end he went over just a video game. I think he was already like,
he was already close to the edge.
He was already close to the edge. And he was very, like, there are so many things that we all experienced from this guy that, you know, like, we were trying to be friends with him, and then it just, like, it was awkward and weird and harassing and threatening at times, and that was just, like, really scary. And it just, I don't know, like, I don't know if that's something that happens very often, or if we just found the, you know, the one, like, really unstable online person that, you know, was gonna do that. Like,
yeah, to me it seems like we just found the bad egg.
But the bad egg, in my opinion, brought most of the rallycross community together.
Yeah, it definitely did.
Isn't that weird?
To me, you know, this is, you know, whatever you believe in, but some things happen for a reason, and I feel like that was one of the things that happened for a reason, to bring us all together and, you know, bring more camaraderie. You know, enemy of our friends, so we all come together in an agreement was, hey, let's not be like that guy. You know, it really helped. Exactly. It kind of brought everyone together, but he was maybe the reason that a lot of us started talking anyway, because he was so, like, extroverted and outgoing and just like, he definitely brought me to the Discord. You know, he was the one that invited me to the Discord.
Yeah, well, that's how I met Julien. Like, you know, here's my story of Julien. I start, you know, I told you earlier, my dad, like, got me hooked into iracing via rallycross. We had just come off the race, and so I bought it. And, you know, who is it that, you know, I first run into? It's Tom. And, you know, he's talking to me, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, you know, nice guy. He's just, you know, he's fun to race with, and he's funny and whatever. I made a friend, and I was really excited whenever I'd jump in a server and my friend I made on the internet showed up. And then right around the time I started iRacing was season 2 of Rallycross, which had just come out, and Global Rallycross, the title sponsor, they did articles on some of the pro qualifying guys, and Julien was one of them. So, you know, I read this article about this Belgian guy that, you know, comes from a motorcycle racing background, and with his dad, and you know, he's, you know, one of the top rallycross sim racers. And I was like, whoa, this guy's like a big deal, blah, blah, blah. Like, I, you know, started to like build up this, like, oh, he's kind of like famous to me. And and it's awkward now because we're like such good friends. But, you know, that's, you know, you read something on, you know, one of your favorite motorsports websites about somebody in Belgium, and then I'm hanging out with Tom one day, and here's this Julien guy. I'm like, whoa.
That guy, I heard about him.
It's that famous guy from the website.
Yeah,
so
if I knew, I would have wore my shades.
Honestly, I was the same way, because I had watched the Rallycross Championship, and, you know, I saw Julien Schein on there, and I'm like, oh, it's Julien Schein. And then you joined the Discord one day, and I was like, that dude's a pro. And
yeah,
at the time, I put every professional, you know, sim racer on this pedestal, because I was just, you know, some dude who just randomly started driving them, and, you know, I liked it and it was fun. So I was just a common guy. Not saying I'm not now, but there was a bit of a starstruck feeling being in the same server with a professional, you know, IRX driver. And then it was Julien, then it was Josh Fox, and then I'm like, holy crap, and then it was Connor Parisi, and I'm like, Wow, and then you start.
I think you mispronounced his last name.
That's funny too, but and I'm blushing a little bit, I must admit. But
so honestly, mine and Torin's first image of you was this dude.
Yeah, I completely understand because, me too. I look up to guys like Beneke or De Jong or, those aliens to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I understand.
But yeah, like, just, it was cool because at first I was a little starstruck. Like, wow, I'm this nobody who just started sim racing a month ago, and I'm like hanging out with this like big timer. But then, like, just from chatting with you and just, I'm like a weird, awkward guy, so I'm just like making jokes and stuff. Like, that's how I like, I don't know, try to ease the tension. And I'm like, oh, this dude's funny. And like, I don't know, like, I would be bored at work or whatever. I'd throw on, Tom's stream and Julian's hanging out with him, and I'd just start chatting, just like, what's up, dudes? Like, what are you doing? How's Belgium? Tell me a thing about it. Like, I just started learning about his culture and things like that, and then all of a sudden we're bros. Like, I don't know, that's just so cool. But what brought us together, became such a nuisance, and it just got really sad, and it just, I'm not trying to say like people are bad. I think the guy had a lot of problems, and I don't think any of us knew how to solve it.
We couldn't. That was something he had to solve on himself, but he was projecting it onto us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it got extreme, it got threatening, it got suicidal. Like, it was just scary. And as many positive, amazing things we can say about it, there's also, downsides to it. That there's life that just kind of like gets interjected into the things that we love. And like, sim racing is such a unique thing because, it I think inherently gives an opportunity for people from all over the world to become close more than any other just video game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I would say. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, life comes through sometimes, and you realize that, what you think is just a good time, innocent, anonymous, kind of fun, and then you come into contact with someone that's just, deals with something major that you don't know how to deal with, and you don't want to do the wrong thing because, like I said, it got suicidal. Like, he sent a note from his wife that he had committed suicide after, we got into just, a bad argument and just disconnection from him. And I was just like, is this real? Like, yeah,
it's scary, actually.
It's so scary. Like,
because there is a life behind the voice, even though that voice was doing malicious things to us, it's still a person. It's still a life that you don't want to see faded away over, collectively, as much seriously as we take it. This is a video game. It's a simulation, but it is a computer program on your computer that you play. And it's for him, there was nothing seriously on the line for it except for a camaraderie. And I feel like that's what he realized he lost and tried to get back so much to maybe he never really had that in life. This is all an assumption. I can read people pretty well, and that's what I read from him was there wasn't much of that in his actual IRL. So by him losing it here, he showed how much it meant to him. Some people do that differently. Some people are very gracious. Some people are very malicious. For him, it turned out to be malicious because of probably felt embarrassed, and maybe too much of his pride got in the way to where he couldn't come back.
I think
he couldn't come back from it.
He already had, some really, bad traits with how he treated people. Like, he was very like aggressive, and he kind of harassed, a lot of us. I think especially Julien. He had a thing for Julien, and it got so uncomfortable that it came to that. But I can't say that any of us caused it. I just think it's who he is, and it just eventually just unraveled and he could never come back. Like, I tried to have a heart-to-heart with him on so many occasions, and it would be like everything was okay after we talked. And then next thing I know, he's, trolling again. Like, he's saying something horrible and doing something bad. But yeah, it's just like, I thought you were cool, man. Like, what happened? Like,
and that's when you gotta realize there's nothing you can actually do. It's gotta be something that they want to change. You sit there and coach them through life, whatever, but nobody's gonna actually change unless they want to. You can just show them the door to go through. So once you show them the door and he doesn't step through it, that's all you can actually do. And it's very frustrating whenever they don't step through it, but at the same time, it's ultimately not your decision for them to. It's theirs.
Yeah.
You can just show them, like, hey, look, there's that door, you should probably step. And if they don't, then that's unfortunate.
So,
ahead, there's something rather strange about internet interaction, is that for example, I'm not sure how I'm gonna explain it, but we are friends on the internet, us three, but at the end of the day, we are just one click from deleting each other's from our friend list.
Yeah, from our lives completely.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like it takes nothing to do that. It's you always need to keep that in mind. But at the same time, as you guys said, between that internet contact, there's a real person.
Yeah.
So I think you should see it both ways. It just depends on the relationship and on the person you have. It can be just an internet contact or an internet buddy or actually an internet friend. I don't know. I don't have the exact science about that, but
I get it.
I'm used to it. I do that.
It all depends on what relation you want with that person and how long it's gone and how toxic or helpful it is.
Yeah, it's like in real life, except it's different.
Yeah, it can, instead of don't ever talk to me again or I'll call the cops. It could literally, like you said, click of a button and they're gone.
Yep.
And it really depends on what kind of relationship you have with them, because you have disagreements with people. Like Torin, you and I have had a disagreement before, but we respected each other enough to where we were like, hey, we're just gonna do this one thing and not completely ruin a friendship, because that would be silly. It'd be absolutely silly, because people disagree all the time. Nobody is gonna be the same. And once people start voicing opinions, directions start going different, and that's just how it has to be. And because of that, I feel like we stayed really good friends through it. Yep. We might not talk every single day, but that's fine. I don't talk to my real life friends every single day.
Yeah, exactly.
I talk to you guys way more than them.
Exactly.
I was actually very nervous about that situation. I was nervous that you guys hit the delete button.
That's something
but
I
you
would
didn't.
do to somebody that I respect. Torin didn't do anything wrong to me, and I treat people the way I want to be treated. I wouldn't do anything wrong to him. I would just voice a different opinion, and then we, as adults, grow from there.
Yeah. Except for netcoding him on track.
I am the number one victim of netcode.
that was my growth, definitely. I probably
netcode, Carlise.
I probably half of those was absolutely my fault, but I didn't understand how it was actually happening. And I know somebody else that's just like that you know exactly who I'm talking about, Torin, but they're not actually figuring it out. It's frustrating, and it's very, very frustrating. But I'm really glad that I moved on from that and taking accountability and realizing, hey, I should probably not give it a chance to netcode. Even if it didn't or it did, just don't even give it the chance to.
Yeah.
That's
it's a possibility, so don't try it.
Yeah, don't even drop someone like that. But I also get that other person's mindset too, is you want to beat this person so bad because you look up to them. So in a way, I understand it, but I don't understand how this person doesn't quite grow from it.
there's two ways that people will actually deal with that. Is that you look up to someone, so you want to beat him, so you want to be you will absorb all the informations from him, or you know what I mean, or you can be jealous.
Yeah, yep, exactly, yeah.
And
either fully respect them or respect them on that line of, hey, I'm still gonna beat you. Like there's a respectable line that crosses sometimes.
Jealousy when you are fast, and you guys know that, but I feel like I've experienced that way more than you did. Jealousy is like, it's everywhere, especially when you are fast. People will start to make up stories and
definitely
excuses, all kinds of stuff.
It's just silly. Sometimes just goes over my head, but sometimes it's really it's very upsetting.
Yeah, definitely. And the way to grow from it is accountability. Like I